Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer with the podcast from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. We humans are tremendously different from each other. We have differences all over our bodies, from skin color to height to the shape of our fingers to the content of our blood. If anybody doubts the vast differences between one person and another, they only need look at our DNA. Other than identical twins, no two human beings have the same DNA. On top of that are the huge effects of life experience. We all lead lives so different that it can be said that we each live in our own universe. Yet we are all products of the same general mold. Whatever differences we have are dwarfed by our similarities. Our bodies are basically all the same, with a few tweaks here and there to make us appear different. Even our DNA, that vast reservoir of diversity, is pretty much the same thing across the board. If someone were to study the entire human genome like a quick reading of a book, they would probably say we are all the same with a few typos. Our life experiences may be greatly varied, but in comparison to our similarities, we are all nearly identical robots playing out slightly different roles. In fact, we are so similar that when we hear about somebody who did something so out of the ordinary, something that we normally consider to be impossible for a normal human being, we tend to doubt that it actually happened. There must have been something else going on that they didn't tell us. Somehow the whole thing must have been rigged, since we know that nobody can actually do that. When it turns out to be true, we are genuinely amazed and wonder how such a thing could have happened. We expect everyone to have the same capabilities and limitations, with a certain amount of flexibility at the edges. A good example of this is what is probably the most common physical activity other than breathing, namely consuming food. We all need to eat and drink. Everyone knows this, and everyone, of course, does eat. Try going even a day without food or drink. If you can make it through that, try 3 days. It's nearly impossible and highly unrecommended. When we hear about somebody who made it through a week of this extreme fasting, we assume that they must have been sneaking in some stuff when nobody was looking. It usually turns out that this is indeed the case. We need to eat, and that's that. But is this actually true? This week's Parsha is called Ki Tisa. That double word introduces a brief interlude of a census being taken among the Israelites. But this is just an interruption from the main theme of the Parsha, which was the catastrophe of the golden calf and its after effects. Everyone knows this story, how they got disenchanted with their situation without their leader Moshe, who was communing with God on the mountain, and insisted on building a physical image of a deity to have something concrete to worship. This enormous spiritual downfall from the height they had reached with the Sinai experience cannot be explained easily. If anything, it illustrates that great human tendency to fail even after succeeding beyond all expectations. This, if anything, is another trait that we all share with remarkable consistency. But after the whole thing was over and sorted out to one degree or another, it was Moshe who experienced the greatest change. His personality seemed to grow as the collective status of the Israelites seemed to shrink. While they are described as not being willing to, quote, wear their crowns, a vague allusion to some sort of spiritual height they'd experienced but now were resistant to maintaining, Moshe ascended to a level that even he may have thought impossible for any human being. His relationship with God changed radically. He was no longer merely the leader of this great experiment in communal religion and monotheism, though he still maintained that role. He was now the single person who could have asked of God to make the nation unique among all in the world, and that God alone be the force of destiny that guided them in everything. But it was in his personal relationship with God that the greatest differences arose. He made a request that placed him forever beyond the reach of all human beings, both before and after. He asked to see God's glory, something that would normally be considered impossible for the human mind and soul. He was told by God, following this bold request, that this was indeed impossible for a human being, for, quote, man cannot see me and live. This famous expression has come to define the ultimate human limitation vis-a-vis God. We may be able to reach great spiritual heights, but there are limits to being a person with a body and a mind. We cannot see God, no matter how much we try. Nevertheless, he was granted a partial vision of his outrageous request. He was allowed to see God, quote, from the back, a tantalizingly vague expression that suggests some sort of version of the divine. Following this dramatic moment, he is told to carve out a new set of tablets of the law to replace those that he broke in anger over the downfall associated with the golden calf. Those were made by none other than God. The new ones would be the product of human skill. They would contain the same words, or so it would seem, but the stone carving in the second set would be the work of flesh and blood. And so it was. Following this is a series of rather conventional laws about holidays, idol worship, and various other things. After this, it goes into a highly personal description of Moshe's actions as he went about his task of carving the tablets and deepening his relationship with God. He was up on the mountain for the classic, quote, 40 days and 40 nights. He didn't eat bread and he didn't drink water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 statements. And when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai, the tablets of testimony were in the hand of Moshe as he descended from the mountain. And Moshe didn't know that the skin of his face radiated as he spoke with him. Presumably, this hymn refers to God, but it is unclear in the text. Anybody who looked at Moshe saw this mysterious glow coming from his face. The Torah goes as far as saying that they were afraid of approaching him because of this. Moshe went to the extraordinary step of putting a veil on when speaking with others. This veil presumably hid the glow and made his strange appearance acceptable to those who couldn't handle it. The Parsha concludes with a brief summing up of this unusual situation. Quote, and Moshe finished speaking with him, that is God, and he put the veil on his face. And when Moshe came before God to speak with him, he removed the veil until he left. And then he went and spoke with the Israelites all that they were commanded. The Israelites saw that the skin of Moshe's face glowed, and he put back the veil on his face until he came to speak with him. It is left unclear in the text what this strange glow actually was. We're given the impression that it was indeed a kind of radiation, like someone who had perhaps spent too much time exposed to some weird nuclear experiment. Others were afraid to come near Moshe, as if they sensed that something was wrong. This veil served as a way of hiding his unusual appearance, like something a horribly disfigured person might wear. We don't hear again about this veil after the Parsha, so we don't know if this condition and this situation remained with Moshe for the rest of his life, or if it was only temporary. The other thing we don't know concerns his not eating bread and drinking water for 40 days and nights. While one could write this off as biblical exaggeration for what was really minimal eating while he was engaged in the important task of making the new set of tablets, the general tenor of the Torah doesn't support this at all. If he was really sneaking food in when nobody was looking, why does the text make this point at all? Why not simply not mention anything about his diet during this period, just as nothing about this subject is said at any other point in Moshe's life? It does seem like the intention here was literal. It really means to say that he didn't eat or drink for that absurd amount of time. Before anybody gets worked up about how this is impossible and it's just one more proof that the Bible is a fairy tale, we should perhaps consider that maybe things aren't always the way we expect them to be. We may not be fully aware of the capabilities of a person under situations of intense spiritual concentration. Those who say that such and such is absolutely impossible under any circumstances may not be aware of the full scope of the human potential. Could it be possible that the human body, under the right mental or spiritual conditions, could actually go without food or drink? What if a person could be sustained for an indefinite period of time on some sort of spiritual energy alone? Science and medicine have nothing to say about this because it is an untested experiment. It is not simply a matter of putting somebody in a room and telling them to meditate for a month and not eat. This was a person communing with God while engaged in carving out God's word on a set of tablets that would change the world. These things don't happen in a lab somewhere. They happen once in history, and they cannot be repeated. When they do, when that unique person actually gets into this incredibly refined zone, strange things take place. That person cannot help but change in ways that are physically noticeable. In Moshe's case, The skin on his face changed. It glowed. This was not necessarily a physical condition that could have been detectable by some medical test. This was the effect of him being in direct contact with the singular force of being in the universe for a sustained amount of time. When somebody truly communes with none other than God for this amount of time, eating and drinking are nothing more than physical distractions. When Moshe reached this state, he was no longer a normal human being. The skin on his face glowed with the radiance of one who no longer needed to eat to sustain himself. The body was still working, but the soul provided the food. The Bible does not say this about anyone else. In fact, it is evident that Moshe himself never reached this state again. This was a highly unique experience, even by biblical standards. But it does show us that we are capable of much more than we normally deem possible. We are human beings in a body made of flesh and blood, but we are also spiritual entities with a soul made of nothing of the sort. The body needs food and drink. That much is obvious, but the soul may not have such needs or desires. And there are times and situations when the powers of the soul can overcome the needs of the body. We all have some version of this power within us. How and when we use it is one of the great choices of life. Shabbat Shalom.